Session 87. Surah Fatiha, the Qur'an summarized. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We begin with the name of Allah, who is most gracious and merciful. Nahmaduhu nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. And we begin with blessings on Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the last and final prophet. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. We continue with Surah Fatiha, verses 6 and 7. Sirat al-lazina anamta alayhim, ghayril maghzubi alayhim walazzalin. Ameen. The path of those whom you have rewarded, not the ones who earned your annoyance, nor those who went astray. We continue with the 36th surah of Qur'an, Surah Yasin, and its verse 53 onwards. In Bismillah, in kanat illa sahatan wahadatan fazahum jameel ladana mawzarun. The stage, all set, all evidence of his deeds provided to every man. It will be time to move for the decisive phase of accountability. And there'll just be a single blood-curdling blast, the third great bugle, then forthwith mankind being forced to run. They'll all be arrayed in a system, numbers notwithstanding, apprehended to stand before us. Verse 54. فَالْيَوْمَ لَتُظْلَمُ نَفْسٌ شَيْئًا وَلَا تُجْزَوْنَ إِلَّا مَا كُنتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. Allah would not be in a hurry to punish the mankind. Allah would not be in a hurry to punish the mankind. And it will have to wait for about 300 years, with each day equal to 1,000 solar years. And it will have to wait for about 300 years, with each day equal to 1,000 solar years. And then that day it shall be a highly veracious, principled, absolutely honest, and very precise and accurate judgment of every man's performance. Not a single soul would suffer the least injustice, and you would be punished or rewarded only for the deeds you enacted. Allah's mercy may be gauged from the fact that the pious people, those making for the heaven decisively, would feel as though they had just waited a morning or perhaps an evening. It will mark the initial recompense, reward for their abstinence and patience, perseverance. Contrariwise, the majority with enormities, serious crimes, would be having such a torturous time that, having had a look at the hell, yet they would wish and pray that this waiting may be shortened and they permitted to go to hell. Abu Hurairah Razulullah Ta'ala Anhu stated that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, on the doomsday, while awaiting Allah's judgment, people would sweat to an extent that their sweat would sweep 70 meters deep into the earth. and it will engulf them to an extent that they'll be drenched in it till their mouths and ears. Muttafiqa alayh Mishkat. Anas Razulullah Ta'ala stated that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, people would be impaired on the doomsday, period of waiting for Allah's attention, to an extent that they'll begin worrying. To an extent that they'll begin worrying about it. They'll decide to ask someone who could beseech Allah to relieve this terribly worry and agony. All the people would come to Adam and say, "O Adam, you, Adam, are the father of the people. Allah has created you with His own hands, placed you in His heaven, taught you the names of everything, made His angels prostrate before you. Please plead with your Rabb that He should relieve us of this agony." He'll say, "I number that I am not happily placed to do so," and would recount his fault of having eaten from the forbidden tree. However, you should go to Prophet Noah. He is the first prophet sent by Allah to the people of the earth. All the people would come to Prophet Noah. He would say, "I don't perceive I have that high a perch with Allah to do so," and would recount his error of having unknowingly asked an inappropriate question from Allah. However, you should go to Prophet Ibrahim, the friend of the merciful. They'll go to Prophet Ibrahim, he'll say, "I do not have this right," and will recollect his 3 half-truths. However, you go to Prophet Moses. He is such a man that Allah gave him Tawrat, spoke to him, and came close to whisper in his ears. They'll then come to Prophet Moses. He'll say, "I am like persona non grata." How he'll recount his episode of the murder of the Qutbi and say, "However, you go to Prophet Isa, Jesus, son of Maryam. He is the man of Allah, His messenger, and His soul and word." People would go to Prophet Isa, Jesus, son of Maryam. He'll tell them, "I am not privileged to do so." However, you go to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He is the only man that all his infirmities of the past and the future have already been forgiven by Allah. Hans Rasulullah continued to narrate that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "All the people would finally come to me. I'll then come to Allah and seek His permission to enter His house. I'll be permitted to enter. When the moment I see Him, I'll fall in prostration. Allah will allow me to remain prostrated till as long as He pleases. Then He'll say, "O Muhammad, raise your head and speak. You will be listened to and recommend salvation and ask and ask it and ask, it will be granted. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, I lift up my head and say special encomiums, praises, and appreciations of my Rabb, which he would have taught me himself. Then I'll recommend salvation. A maximum limit would be fixed, granted for me. I'll come out and exhume, salvage, then bring them out of the fire and make them enter the heaven. Then I'll scatter, move quickly, go back the second time, and request Allah, the Almighty, for permission to enter His house. I'll be permitted to enter. The moment I see Him, I'll fall prostrate. As long Allah likes, He'll permit me to hang in there. Thereafter, He'll say, O Muhammad, you can lift your head and speak. It will be heard. Recommend salvation. Your recommendation, intercession would be accepted. And seek, you will be granted. I'll therefore raise my head and praise my Rabb with such specially exclusive encomiums, praises, which he'd have taught me himself. Then I'll plead salvation. A maximum limit would be granted, fixed for me. I'd come out, find them from the fire, and take them into the heaven. Having brought home the beacon twice, and not leaving it at that, I'll persevere. I'll come back the third time, seek Allah's permission to enter His house. I'll be permitted to enter. Seeing Him, I'll fall prostrate. He shall let me remain as such till as long as He pleases. Consequently, He'll say, O Muhammad, raise your head. Speak, it will be bestowed. The Prophet, peace be upon him, then said, I lift my head and praise and appreciate Rabb with such great eloquence, which He'd have blessed me Himself. Then I'd implore for mercy, a maximum limit encompassing all the remaining believers would be granted to me. I'll come out and salvage them from hell and leave them into the heaven. Only those would stay put in hell who would be blocked by Qur'an, that is, those for whom Allah has promised hell, those who do not believe in Qur'an, the disbelievers, those who believe in Allah and yet indulge in shirk also, those who believe in Allah and yet indulge in shirk also. Then the Prophet, peace be upon him, recited the ayat that your Rabb, sustainer, would lift me to the perch, Muqam-e Mahmud, and said, this is the greatest perch, this is the greatest perch, place which Allah has promised your Prophet. Muttafika alayh, Mishkat. Abdullah bin Masud Razilullah Ta'ala Anhu is quoted as Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, I know the last person to be forgiven leaving the hell and entering heaven. Thereafter, none will be forgiven. That is, none would ever be released from hell. That is, none would ever be released from hell. A person would slink from the hell, dragging himself on the knees. Allah would order, Go and enter the heaven. Go and enter the heaven. He'll feel as though the entire heaven is overly full and say, "Oh, my sustainer, I have seen it, already jam-packed." Allah would say, "Go and enter the heaven. You have a place equal to the earth and 10 times more vast." He'll submit, "Are you joking with me, being light-hearted with me, whereas you are the king?" Abdullah bin Masud stated, "And I saw the Prophet, peace be upon him, smiling to an extent that all his teeth were visible. Said he'll be the heaven dweller of the most meager level." Muttafiq alayh Mishkat. Anas Rasulullah Ta'ala stated, "Surely the Prophet stated, salvation on my recommendation would occur even for the most gravely sinful of my ummah." Tirmidhi, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah, Mishkat. Anas Rasulullah Ta'ala is quoted as Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Those marked for the hell would be standing in an orderly row. A man for the heaven would pass close to them. A hell captive would say, 'Oh, so and so, don't you recognize me? I had once given you water to drink.' A second man would say, 'I had once provided you with water for ablution.' With the permission of Allah to recommend, the heavenward person would request Allah for their salvation and take them to the heaven." Ibn Majah. Jabir Razulullah Ta'ala anhu is quoted, "A person inquired from the Prophet, peace be upon him, 'Would those in heaven sleep? Would those in heaven sleep?' The Prophet, peace be upon him, replied, 'Sleeping is like death, death's brother, and the heaven dwellers wouldn't die, and the heaven dwellers wouldn't die.' Bahiki, Mishkat. Nu'man bin Bashir Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhu is quoted, the Prophet said, "The highest torture in hell would be for a believing person who, having two shoes or two shoelaces of fire, would make his mind boil as ferociously as soup in a cooking pot. He'd feel as though there is none suffering greater punishment, torture than himself, whereas his punishment is the lightest." Muttafiq alayh Mishkat. Ka'b Razulullah Ta'ala anhu, a Jew scholar earlier, then converted to Islam, quotes from Torah we find written in the Old Testament. Quotes from Torah we find written in the Old Testament, "Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the Prophet of Allah, a slave human being whom I like tremendously. He is not insolent, rude in speaking. He is soft-spoken, nor harsh by nature, nor does he roam around in markets. He doesn't retaliate, but forgives and forgets and closes the matter forever. His place of birth is Mecca, and Medina is his place of migration. He'll also rule over Syria. His Ummah praises Rabb profoundly, happy or sad. His Ummah praises Rabb profoundly, happy or sad, they praise Allah. Happy or sad, they praise Allah. They remember Allah at every step. They remember Allah at every step, They mention Allah's greatness, high pedestal at every high place in all senses of the term. They are watchful, careful about the son, that is, offer prayers the moment it is time for prayers. They offer prayers the moment it is time for prayers. Wear tahband, sheet, pajamas, shalwar, tope, etc., till half of their calves, till half of their calves. Tirmidhi, Mishkat. That is, they keep their ankles uncovered. That is, the men keep their ankles uncovered. That is, wear pajamas, trousers, etc., short of the ankles. Ankles remain uncovered. Abdullah bin Salam, a Jew scholar earlier, then converted to Islam, died 53 after Hijrah. Is quoted, Muhammad's attribute is written in Torah, that Prophet Isa, Jesus, son of Maryam, Mary, would eventually be buried along his side. Tirmidhi, Mishkat. Jabir Razullah Ta'ala anhu, Abu Abdullah participated in 18 battles after Badr, expired in 74 after Hijrah at the age of 94. Is quoted, it never occurred that the Prophet, peace be upon him, was asked for anything and he might have said no. I repeat, he stated, it never occurred that the Prophet, peace be upon him, was asked for anything and he might have said no. Muttafika alayh, Mishkat. That's end for today. Jazakallah. Please pray for me, ex-Brigadier Mustansir Billah.